Being able to accept payments on your website is a crucial part of your online business, but being able to accept secure payment is absolutely critical. Using well-known, trusted and secure payment gateways such as PayPal and Stripe gives shoppers peace of mind that their hard-earned money won't end up in the wrong hands. Piotnet Forms has all the right tools to accept payments via both of these gateways, and it is super simple to get the integration set up and build it into a form on your website. This video consists of 3 parts. First, we'll look at how to set up PayPal, then we'll look at Stripe, and right at the end, I'll show you how you can combine both these gateways in a single form and allow your shoppers to choose which gateway they prefer. Hi again, I'm Peter from the Ultimate WordPress Guide, and today I'll show you how to build a few very simple forms to accept payments for donations, products or services via PayPal and Stripe. I have to mention here that even though this tutorial covers the form builder functionality with Piotnet add-ons for Elementor, Piotnet also has a standalone WordPress plugin named Piotnet Forms, and it is compatible with any page builder. Both of these have a free version that you can download from the WordPress repository, but to get the maximum power and to use the functionality described in this video, you'll need the Pro version. If you're new to Piotnet add-ons and forms, head over to their website and grab your copy. I've put a link in the description along with a coupon code to gift you an additional 10% off your purchase. These are affiliate links, so if you decide to purchase, I'll receive a commission at no additional cost to you, of course. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up so that other users can also benefit by having this recommended to them. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe to our channel, tap the bell to stay up to date with all of our newly released content. Now let's have a look at how this works. Now to get started, we head over to the WordPress backend under the Piotnet add-on settings, and the first thing you need to check and ensure is that your PayPal payment and Stripe payment are both activated. If they're not, toggle them on, hit save settings, and we're good to go. Scrolling further down to the page to the Stripe integration and the PayPal integration settings, here's where you'll see you need to put in some key details to enable you to use these features on the front end. We'll get to Stripe a little bit later in this video, but first let's focus on the PayPal integration. So I need to input a client ID, and in order to do so, I need to head over to the PayPal developers platform to create a new app and credentials to allow me to generate a client ID that I can save in this area. Now if you click on this link, it'll take you over to the PayPal developers platform. And once at the PayPal developer platform, if you don't have a PayPal developer account yet, I suggest you create one. But if you do, simply log into your dashboard and we'll take it from there. Once you're inside your dashboard, you want to head over to the My Apps and Credentials section, and we need to create a new app to generate the credentials that we need to activate the PayPal client ID. So I'll go ahead and click on the Create App button. It'll take you to a page where you need to specify the app name and the app type. Now for all intents, because we're creating a form where we want to accept payments as a merchant or a seller, this is the option that we'll leave on. If you don't have a Sandbox account already created in your developer platform, you need to create a Sandbox account first, which we won't cover in this video, but for this example, I already have a Sandbox business account activated, so I'll just go ahead and create the app that I need. So I'll call this Piotnet Tutorials and click on Create App. So the app is now created against the Sandbox account, and there is my client ID. I need to now copy this client ID, head back over to my WordPress dashboard in Piotnet settings, go to the PayPal integration and paste the client ID, and then save settings. Over on my Elementor canvas, I've created a very simple donation form that consists of 2 components. The first being an amount field, the second a submit button. So on the amount field, I've created a form ID, I've given it a form ID, I've given it a field ID which generates a short code, and at the moment it is set up as a radio button. I've given it a label that says this is the donation amount, and under the options I've defined 4 options that I want to give the user to select from in terms of a donation amount. Now you'll notice that there is a pair of numbers specified here. The first being the label, the second being the key. Now I can use the label to display it on the form, but the key is what actually goes into the payment gateway to process the dollar amount. Now you will have certain instances where you want to push the data through by label, and if you go further down onto this form, you'll see that there is a send data by label option, which is currently switched off, and we'll keep it that way. Now currently this is the radio button, as I mentioned, but I can also select that as a select form, where I also present the user with some options, and it gives them a drop-down list to specify that amount. I can also add it as a text field, which will then prompt the user to manually enter a value that they want to specify for a donation amount. It doesn't really matter which way you go, as long as I have a field that can capture the donation amount that will push through to the payment gateway. So next then over to the donate button. At the moment it is an empty button, nothing intuitive configured to it yet, it's just been styled to suit the design of the form. I give it the same form ID as the field that we've previously specified, and if I head over to the actions after submit, you'll see that currently there's nothing configured, but I can go ahead and set up an email to send to the merchant. I can set it up to integrate with my PayPal, ActiveCampaign, MailPoet, and so on. Doesn't really make sense at the moment because I'm not capturing any user information, but you can certainly go ahead and extend this form to insert that information so that you can capture the user's data in your mailing lists. What we really want to look at here is the PayPal payment option. At the moment it is disabled, so first things first, I'll go and enable that option, and immediately you'll see that the styled button that I had has disappeared. This has now been replaced by the native PayPal buttons on the front end. It is not visible on the back end, but you'll see what I mean in just a moment when we hop over to the front end. On the PayPal payment gateway, there are very few settings that I need to configure. First things first is the currency. So there are a couple of currencies that I can choose from. In this example, I'll stick with USD. And then I've got the amount. So the amount at this point is drawing information from the amount field that I have. So I have my field ID amount shortcode. I'm just going to bring that back to a radio button. But I grab that shortcode, I go over into the PayPal options, and I specify that shortcode. Now I don't have to do this. I can of course specify a default amount where I don't have a field necessarily that prompts the user to input a value. But then by default, if the user clicks on the PayPal button, they'll be charged $1,000. So for this example, I'll leave that as drawing the information from the amount field. Under the description area, again here, I can pull information from a field intelligently if I have something in the form, but in this example, I can specify manually what I would like that description to be. Now, locale is effectively where the buyer is coming from. PayPal can automatically detect via geolocation where the buyer is from. But if you're not sure and you want to specify a specific locale for your form, you can head over to this link, which will bring you over to the PayPal developer platform, where you can see a list of all of the available locales that you can input in that area. With everything configured, I'm going to do a quick update, hop over to the front end of the site, and let's see how this works. So on the front end, I've got my donation form. I can select an option from my radio button list, and I'll hit the PayPal button. I'll immediately be redirected to my Sandbox account. If you're not logged in, you have to log in. I'm already logged in, so it'll take me to the gateway immediately, and there you can see that the $10 amount that I've selected in the radio button is already set up for payment. Now let's close this down and go back to the form and just change that to $100. I'll click the PayPal button again. It goes through the same process. It redirects me to the gateway, and you'll then see that the amount is updated to $100. Now, depending on how your PayPal account is configured, you can either use your PayPal balance or any debit or credit cards that is configured on the account. Once you've selected the appropriate option, simply hit Pay Now. The PayPal gateway allows you to also directly use a debit or a credit card option. So if I click on the debit or credit card option, again, it'll redirect you to the gateway, where you now have the option to specify all of the details: card information, country, billing information, shipping information, phone number, etc. It gives you the option to create an account and continue, or you can continue as guest and simply check out that way. Now for the Stripe configuration, the form and the setup is vastly different. You'll notice here that I've got a simple checkout field, but no products or services or even price for that matter defined. And I'll show you exactly why I've done that. It doesn't mean you have to do it this way. You can always add products to this form. You can always add the specific amount of the product or the service that you're selling. But this is just to let you know that it is possible to do so. And you can actually generate everything from your Stripe account. It means that you can define all of your Stripe products in your Stripe dashboard without the need to use WooCommerce on your website. And I'll explain this later. Now, similarly to the PayPal integration, I also need to define some Stripe integration settings. I need to supply it with a publishable as well as a secret key, which I can get from my Stripe dashboard. Now, it's important to note that you have to have a Stripe verified business account in order to use Stripe as an integrated payment gateway. Over on my Stripe dashboard, I go over to the developers section, and over here you can see all of the API keys that you have live on your account. But seeing as that we're doing this in a testing environment and not on a production website per se right now, I need to define some test keys. In order to do so, I'll head over to test mode. It'll flag up and prompt me that I'm currently using test data, so no real transactions will take place. Over here you can see your publishable and your secret key. I'll copy both of these, which I have to go and paste into the Stripe integration settings on my WordPress backend. I'll copy these now. With the Stripe API keys now in place, all I have to simply do is click on Save Settings. So let's take a look now at how this form was built and all the components that are necessary and required for that matter to set up a form where you can use Stripe checkout. Now, I've got a very basic form here, and you'll remember from the PayPal form, I didn't have all this information in because PayPal didn't require me to add something like billing information, which is effectively all this is. So I've created a number of fields here, and if I head over to the field details, you'll see that I've got a form ID that again is consistent across all of the forms, including the Pay Now button that generates a number of shortcodes, which I'll need to enter for the Stripe checkout. So I've got form fields here for billing information, name, email, phone, address, city, country, state, province, postal code, and so on. The last one down next to the Pay Now button is a very specific type of form field. So if I select that field, I've got a form ID again. I've just given it a field ID, but it's important here that this is the type of Stripe payment. And what this will effectively do is capture the user's card information, which will then push that through to the Submit button. Now on the Submit button, there are a couple of things to configure. So first things first, again, form ID, which is consistent. I've got some text on there, which is customizable. You can call that whatever you like. On the actions after Submit, all I really want to do here is send an email to the merchant, myself, that a user has filled in the form and generated a payment. But the powerful bit is on the Stripe payment section, and that is quite configurable. Now again, comparing this to the PayPal form we had earlier, we didn't have the need to fill in all of these details, and this is why I've created the form in this way, so that I can pull all the information from the form fields into all the descriptive fields that are necessary. So if we head from the top down, I've got the Stripe payment currently enabled. Next I have the currency, and as you can see, there is a vast amount of currencies more available on the Stripe checkout than there is on the PayPal checkout. Now, what makes this more powerful than the PayPal checkout as well is the ability to take subscriptions through the Stripe gateway, whereas PayPal doesn't have that option at the moment. We'll get to the subscriptions in just a bit. Next over, I can then specify the amount. Now, as I mentioned a little earlier, I can configure all of my products inside of my Stripe dashboard without the need to use WooCommerce on my website. So here I've defined an amount which will automatically be recognized by the gateway, and it'll charge the user when they click the Pay Now button. So to show you what I mean by this, back over in my Stripe dashboard, I head over to the product section, and I've created a new product with a very basic description. So I've given the product a name, I've given it a price, and that generates a product ID and a product name. I've got a description, but the description is not really relevant. What this then will do is it'll pull the information based on the product ID or the title that I have, and the amount that I've specified, and it'll use that product with the payment description that I have here, which I've made similar to the product title inside the Stripe dashboard. Now, as I've mentioned before, you can also add an amount field to your form, which you can then use the shortcode to refer, which gives me the ability to offer dynamic pricing. This could be a text field. Again, I could create a donation form, allow the user to input an amount, and that amount will then calculate what gets charged through the gateway. I'll leave that off for now since I've specified a default price. And if I look at the rest of the fields, these are all the fields configured over here. So I've got the customer name, I've got the customer email field, I've got a customer description field, which is a descriptor for their statement. I've got a phone number, an address, a city, a country, and if I have an additional address field, which I currently don't have configured here, but I can also add that. I've got the postal code or zip code, and then I've got the customer address state field, which is also configured. Here is where I'll specify the email address that the receipt will be sent to after the purchase, and then there are a couple of default Stripe payment gateway statuses or shortcodes that helps the gateway identify the status of the payment. So I've got a payment ID, I've got a status, which will then flag up what the status of that payment is, whether it's exceeded, whether it's still pending, or whether it's failed. And then based on the form itself, here are some messages which are customizable that I can customize to prompt once the form is submitted what it will report back. Now, I mentioned earlier that I can also take subscriptions on my website through the Stripe payment gateway. Even though I don't have anything configured here, let me show you all of the options that are currently available. So I head back over to my Stripe payment and I toggle these subscriptions options to on. That now brings in a whole host of new information that I need to specify here. If you remember from earlier in the dashboard under my products in Stripe, here I have the product name. I also copied the product ID that I have on the product page. I have the option here to also specify whether I want to charge the subscription only by the price. So if I toggle that on, I can put a specific price ID in, but because I have the information configured in Stripe, I may as well use it. Do I have, as a company, have a tax ID that I need to specify here? So I can input that here. And then if I've configured a subscription plan, allowing the buyer to select from multiple plans, that may mean I would offer this product to them and they can pay it over a daily or a monthly or a weekly or a yearly fee. So if I have this option and I've created a field inside of my form, that could be a radio button, could be a select field, I would then specify the plan selection shortcode here. So when the user selects that field, let's use this as an example. If he selects the appropriate subscription plan, I will then refer back to that here. But I haven't done that in this example, obviously, so I'll just leave that unchecked. Now for the subscription information, I can add a few items around the subscription. So if I open up the example that I have here, I can again refer back to the subscription plan field where I've defined in the drop-down list whether it's a daily, weekly, 3 monthly, 6 monthly or yearly subscription. I'll leave that unchecked. In terms of intervals, this is where I can set up the intervals. Does it bill by year, month, week or day, and what the interval count is. So this instance will bill the customer once a year. If I change that to 3, the customer will be billed every 4 months. So I'll leave that to 1. What is the subscription amount? In this instance, for Piotnet add-ons for Elementor, if I want to charge the customer $99 once a year, I can do so from here. Now, if there's a one-time fee, and this is usually a sign-up fee that I can charge the customer for a particular product or services, a deposit if you will, I can also specify what the one-time initial upfront fee is and then have the monthly or yearly or weekly amount specified in that area. Again here, if I have an amount field specified on the form, I can refer to that here and I can input the shortcode. Now I can also give the ability to cancel the subscription. So with this selected, I can then identify that after how many intervals, and that is the unit, so after days, months or years, this subscription will automatically cancel. Now for the subscription, the rest of the details remain the same, and that is all the billing information that I capture from the form. Now that we've reviewed all the available options, I'll hit update and let's take a look at how it works on the front end of my website. So here I'll now quickly go ahead and input all the billing and card information to process the payment. After I filled in all the information, all I have to do is hit the Pay Now button and the transaction will be processed. Here I can see that the payment has been successful and the form has been successfully submitted, which also means I will receive an email about the transaction that has just taken place. If I now head back over to my Stripe dashboard and under the payment section, because I'm using test data, it still shows me that test data is activated. Here you can see the transaction that we've just processed from John Doe, and there is his email address for $99, and that is the product that he has just purchased. The third and last part of this video is the option to give the buyer payment options to process the payment. So here I have the ability to use Stripe. If I click Stripe, it flags up a field that prompts the user to enter his credit card information, and if I select PayPal, it brings up the native PayPal options. On the back end, I needed to make a couple of changes. So first off, I've created an additional field called Payment Methods. I've given it a form ID, a field ID, and here I've chosen to use a select form. It doesn't really matter which one you choose. I can use a radio button, I can use a select form or an image select form if you want to display images of the gateways, but it's really important that there are options, any of the fields that can display options to the user in terms of what option payment method they need to select. The specific configuration for this is, if you scroll a little further down, you now see the option here to enable payment methods for the select field. That is set up to yes. And then for the payment method for Stripe, I've added Stripe. For the payment method for PayPal, I've added PayPal. Now, something additionally that I needed to do different here as well is, by default, the credit card information field won't display if I select the Stripe option. What I have to do here is the same as I had with the Stripe configuration. I have that field here, which is a Stripe payment field, but I've added some conditional logic. So on the conditional logic, I've enabled this, and I've set this up to say that if the field, which is the payment method select field, contains Stripe, then reveal that field. Lastly, on the submit button for the Stripe checkout, you'll remember that I only had the Stripe checkout field enabled. Over here, I've now gone back and also enabled the PayPal payment, and I've kept the information for this transaction similar to the Stripe payment option. So again, if I head over to the front end, you'll see PayPal. There's no credit card field visible here for the Stripe checkout, but as soon as I select the Stripe checkout, the conditional logic kicks into play. It allows the user to enter credit card details. They'll hit the Pay Now button the same way they would before with the single Stripe checkout. And that's how you use Stripe and PayPal payments in Piotnet Forms. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you found it useful or helpful, remember to give us a thumbs up, and if you really liked it, leave us a comment below. And if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to our channel, hit the bell for notifications, and stay tuned for more great content. I've put a few links to tools, services, and plugins that I use, including this one, in the description below. Be sure to also grab the coupon code to claim your 10% discount when you buy either Piotnet Addons or Piotnet Forms. These are affiliate links. If you make a purchase through one of them, I'll receive a commission at no additional cost to you, of course. I only endorse products that I've personally used, and your support helps me put out more great content. So thanks. Head over to our website at ultimatewpguide.com to download the template files that we've used in this video. Bye for now.